Today is Thanksgiving, and our freedoms are not usually one of the things that come to mind as something to be thankful for. Our guest explains her experience living in Cuba and why she appreciates the freedoms she's been given in the United States.
Welcome once again to Back to Basics. We appreciate you guys joining us once again for another conversation, and we are very excited about this one. I say that every week, right?
Every week.
But they're good conversations, though. There's a reason why. But anyways, as always, my wife is joining me.
Yes, hi. So excited. I'm always excited, right?
Always
excited. No, we're happy to be here. We're happy to have our friend Gaby with us.
Hey.
Gaby, thank you for joining us. Thank you for coming with us. How are you? How are things going with you?
Good. Thank you guys for having me. It's been like a long time since we said we were going to do this, and now I'm glad it's happening.
By the way, I don't want to miss it. I don't want to forget about it. Congratulations. Your amazing boyfriend is here. He's off camera, right? But
Fiancé.
You guys are engaged.
Fiancé
now.
Thank you.
You guys are. So that's a change from the last time we saw you.
Oh, yeah.
So congratulations.
Thank you.
Good stuff. So, Gaby, you are. Well, I don't want to say it. I'll let you say a little bit about you, where you're from. And
To prepare people. It's exciting.
So I'm gonna shut up and I'll let you, introduce yourself and tell us where you come from and all that.
Well, I'm Gaby. I'm 19. Born and raised in Havana, Cuba. That's what's up. Caribbean people. We migrated here in January 15th of 2010, and it's been quite the journey. So it's been a big blessing to have been here already for 10 years.
10 years already. Wow.
So
Yeah,
you were
time
raised
flies.
in Cuba.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Came here when I was 7, the day before my birthday.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
It was my birthday gift, actually.
Wow.
Yeah. Prayer answered ever since I was a kid.
How much do you miss Cuba?
Nothing.
Really?
Zero.
What?
Zero. I miss the climate because over there's like summer all year long. So, you can like go to the beach in
Right.
December.
So it doesn't get as hot as it gets here in Texas.
Kind of.
See?
Yeah.
Sometimes.
Yeah. Sometimes.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, no, I'm glad you came because I got a chance to hear your story before. And it's a very interesting time that we're in right now.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Socially, politically, and in every angle that you look at it from. And I think Cubans are some of the Latinos that are in a that have a different perspective from a lot of other Latino classes. And I think there's a good reason for that. But let's I'm gonna let you tell us your story, right? Because you went through a lot in Cuba, right?
Mm-hmm.
There was a lot. You lived through the Castro, I guess, and more your parents, right? Lived through the Castro regime, and you guys went through, you guys experienced a lot of things that none of us have ever experienced, right? And so,
As a child, I could just imagine, like, my child going through something like that. It's just pretty...
traumatizing.
Yeah.
See. Yeah.
But yeah, so why don't you tell us a little bit about that,
In order to like really fully and like comprehend what life over there is like, there's a lot of like misconceptions. Like people hear like, oh, you're from Cuba, like wow, you like you're like raised by a beach and like you eat a bunch of seafood and this and that, but like that's not really how it is. And it's kind of sad because like that's the picture that the government wants you to see it as, right? Like it's a beautiful island, great hotels, great beaches, paradise, but that's not what you see when you go visit there. Like, and I met a lot of people that have told me, oh, I visited Cuba. Like, I didn't see, like, anyone poor, like, walking without shoes or people starving, like, because it's what they want you to see. And, for example, like, now if you guys go and visit there, or, you're going to see, like, Cuba, like, the old aesthetic vibes that it has, like, 1950s car and, like, these things.
Which is also what you see in movies, right?
Yeah, exactly what you would see in, like, Fast and Furious,
it looks
right?
really cool, very...
Yeah, but... you don't see like what's behind the curtain. They only take you to like certain spots and you can't go to like the restricted areas, right?
So if you go to Cuba, you're being guided to where, like, you can't just freely go and roam and go see whatever you want to see, or
People know if you don't like belong there, you know what I mean? So, and what's funny about it is like,
basically.
yeah, like you stand out. Even if you go dressed as like very like low key, like people know. Even if I go back now, like, people know, like, oh, who's that gringa,
Yeah.
Like, they know. And then in every neighborhood, there's a system, and there's always going to be, like, un comité. I don't know how you would say that in English, but it's, like, a system that the government has settled in every neighborhood and they're like the cameras, they're like the security cameras of the neighborhood. So if they like see something suspicious or someone suspicious, or hearing, you know, them saying something that will be like controversial for like the government or anything, like they're gonna snitch on you and you're gonna get in trouble. So like that's how basically the system runs over there with that.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely way different from what we're used to in
You're
Texas.
over here.
Yeah.
You know?
Everybody roams free.
Yeah. Oh yeah. What is the political climate over there? Are they? Well, I mean, I'm assuming they're not really fighting as. There's really not two parties fighting like here, right? Like it's basically very one-sided.
Yeah.
Obviously. What is the take of the people over there? Because I'm my guess is that, you know, people might not like the government there, but what is the image that they have of the United States, for example, or of other countries that have, you know, political elections and things like that?
It's funny that you say that because, at least for my generation, like we're already born into the system. We didn't have the opportunity to see what like Cuba was like before the Castros or anything. So if you talk to like, for example, my grandparents' generation, they saw a flip. Because Cuba was like the pearl of the Caribbean. It had good tobacco, it had good trading businesses going on, and until Castro came, like they saw everything taken away from them, like just like that. And so my generation was born into the system, so it just really takes a woke community to help them understand that where they're born, you know, like it's not all pearls and flowers how other people on the outside paint it. And that's just what's different to comprehend, because not a lot of people there are woke. People that get the opportunity to leave Cuba, like they're like, okay, I understand where I was living through, and I understand that, you know, it's obviously a corrupt system. So over there, the idea that people have is like, okay, we're just born into a system where like it's just like a poor country and that's all we're ever gonna have. There's not a breadwinner mentality over there. It's not, because we're all like, you know, yeah.
So people, that's very interesting. That's one of the perspectives that I hadn't thought about. Like the people that are born into the system, I guess find it more difficult to fight for something, right? Because that's all they've ever known. They didn't get a taste of freedom like the older generation did.
Yeah.
Right. And then I'm assuming you've met people who have fought back against the government.
My dad was one of them.
Really?
Yeah, my dad was one of them. I know like around the 70s or 80s, like he got very rebellious with the government, and he was detained a couple of times for saying stuff that he shouldn't have said over there. But he like,
you mean there's no freedom of speech?
there's no freedom of
What?
speech. There's none. Like you're born into like this like prison mentality where like it's just what the government thinks and what the government believes, and that's it, and that's all it's ever gonna be. If you think differently, that's it.
So they tell you what to think, how to act, what to do, basically everything.
Yeah.
Well, I find that very interesting because looking at politics here, we just had the elections, right? The election night, and there's one thing that I find interesting is that the Democratic Party thought they were going to win Florida.
Yeah.
Right? They didn't, and they blame. And I've actually seen many people, you know, insult Cubans for handing, you know, Trump the state.
Yeah.
And I guess that kind of tells you which side, you know, the Cubans kind of you know, align with. But I don't know if you want to say or kind of talk a little bit about what ideology, you know, differences you have, or what is it that you don't like about the left versus the right, or you know, why would a Cuban, I guess, go
Lean
for
more towards the right.
Yeah.
With that, like I said, I remember there's a saying that it's like you don't know what you have until it's gone. But for us, it's more of like we don't know what we have because we've never had it. We've never had that like mentality or that opportunity to be in a country where it allows you to think. It allows you to, you know, choose between like right and wrong. Over there, it's like just one system and one system only, and that's all that you're gonna ever have. You don't even have like the opportunity to decide what you're gonna cook for dinner. Sometimes, like I remember, like my parents, like we would all just clock out and go to sleep early, because there was nothing. You would open the fridge and it was just frozen water bottles. That's all. And like just praying to God that, like, you know, someone is gonna come around and say, hey, we have like 5 extra eggs. Like, do you want them? So whenever we came here, like we understood that here we have like so many opportunities that over there we didn't have, and that's part of like the Cubans here in Florida, like they actually understand that, because over there the Cuban community is very like united, and they understand everything that's going on over there, because over there the news are controlled, the media is controlled, so there's not a way of telling like if the situation that you're living in is like wrong or anything, because that's all they've ever known, right?
Yeah.
So whenever you're here and you actually like are more aware of the news and everything, you actually understand like, oh my God, like I've been living in a bubble. And here, like, you know, a lot of people like criminalize like the Cuban community, like, oh, you guys are traitors, like you guys are not standing up with like the Latino community, but it shouldn't be one-sided only.
Yes.
We're in a country where it allows you to think differently. So if I want to think differently because I have gone through something that has allowed me to think differently, then why shouldn't it be that way?
Be open-minded. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and that kind of that type of mentality that you're describing, where you know all the Latinos have to think this way, you know, or all African Americans have to think a certain way. It eventually led to what we know as the cancel culture.
Yeah.
Right, which you know quite a bit about. So I know in the past you've had experiences where you've been attacked for some of your posts, and some of those posts, in my opinion, are not even controversial.
Yeah.
Right. Like some of those are Christian posts. They're not even political. But I don't know if you wanna kind of share some of that, because I know recently that happened, right?
Oh yeah, it was crazy. At first when like all the rioting started, they were like burning down churches, and not just here in America. Like this took a toll on like other countries that had nothing to do with the situation that happened here. And they were burning down like Jesus statues and all these things, and I was like, how can like Christians be okay with that, you know? And I saw like a lot of Christians that were condoning that. They were like, oh, you know, we understand why you're hurt, so it's okay.
Yeah.
But I'm like, one thing doesn't have to lead to another. You can be mad and you can like express that in any other way, but if you're a Christian, why are you condoning like burning down churches or burning down like Jesus statues? So I went on Twitter and I was like, I don't care about like, you know, political differences. Like everyone, you know, to each their own. But if you're a Christian and you're okay with like burning down churches, then like what the heck? Like that shouldn't, like, leave God out of that. Like he has like no place for like you to express your anger onto like a church, where church is like a place for hope.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so a lot of people were attacking me, calling me like ugly names. They were just cussing at me and all these things. And I was like, what the heck is wrong with people? Like I didn't do anything, right? And
were these people that you knew, like friends of yours, or
people that I didn't even know were attacking me on Twitter? And I was like, what the heck? And this one guy, Mauricio, he was like, oh my gosh, you guys, just block A1 Gaby because she clearly cares more about her religion than the political differences. And I'm like, then I was being called like racist because apparently I'm not with the Latino community. And I'm like, I haven't even talked about race here. Like I'm talking about burning down churches. It has nothing to do with race. But it's just like an ideology that this generation has, that if you think differently or they already like suspect you not like supporting what they believe in, that's it. You're canceled. And it shouldn't be that way. Yeah. It shouldn't be that way.
Yeah, I've been like that. I've been, it gets on me because I put political stuff on on Facebook, and then he's like, you need to go ahead and remove that. And I'm like, well, it's because I want to, you know, say what I have to say. And out of a sudden you get attacked. It starts with family, then family, friends, and then friends go to, you know, other friends, and then so on and so on. And I haven't been canceled yet because I have to remove the post.
I think, like, the way I see it is important to talk about these things. But I believe in conversation, where me and you can have a conversation about it, and I can listen to what you have to say, but if you're willing to listen to what I have to say as well.
Of course.
I think I've been very outspoken on social media in the past. And what I've come to find out is, and I don't even care about losing friends. If they unfriend me, who cares, right? Ultimately, the people that matter to me is my wife, my kids, and my immediate family. Those are the people who matter to me. Obviously, I care about everybody, but, you know, if
you can have an open mind.
If I have to bend the knee to what they believe in order to be my friend, that's not really friendship.
Exactly.
You know? But the ththing is, what I was telling Rachel is that when you go on social media is a horrible place. First off,
yes.
You know? and
but it's so fun.
It is. It's addictive. It's addictive. You know. But when you go on social media and you post something, when you start those conversations, you're not convincing anybody to begin with.
Yeah.
There's nobody being convinced there. And not to mention that most people don't really put any real arguments, to what they believe. Most people are just insulting other people. And I mean, just as you mentioned that.
Yeah.
And so my take is that, okay, you know what? This is a waste of time. Like, I've been to where I'm like, responding to threads and like, I'm not going to let it go.
It's a waste of time.
I mean, I've been there.
Is,
and two of the things that I was very outspoken about before was abortion and the gun rights. Or gun rights. Those are the two main things that I used to be very outspoken about before. I don't think back then, when I was very outspoken, the whole socialism thing had started yet. Like, it hadn't, taken such a strong hold as it is today.
Yeah, no, I don't think so.
Yeah, but when it comes to guns and abortion, I used to be very outspoken. Still are. I still am when I need to be. But I come to find out that it's a waste of time to do it on social media.
Yeah.
Again, if you scroll through and you see people's opinions, like, okay, dude, like, this is not an argument. You're not giving me a reason to understand why you believe what you believe. You're basically just saying, this is what I believe, and everybody who doesn't agree with me is a racist, is a homophobe, is this, is X, is whatever.
Yeah.
Right? And it's like, okay, I just scroll past those, and it's a waste of time to even engage. Again, I respect the people. I respect their opinions. Believe whatever you want to believe. And then that's as far as I go.
Yeah.
If you want to come and sit down and have a conversation with me, I'm open to that.
A mature conversation.
Yeah. But that's it. And so that's where I tell Rachel, like, it's like, why are you posting that? Like, what are you trying to do? You're not going to convince anybody. People already know what you think. You're just, stirring things up, And so
sometimes you got to stir it up.
Add a little bit of spice.
You got to keep things interesting. No, I guess that is a good way to perch your friends list,
Hey.
But no. So then, I guess that's a good segue to this next thing, socialism.
No.
I would assume you hate socialism.
Don't even get me started.
So something interesting that I heard, actually. Apparently, many people are mad because apparently this year more Hispanics and more African Americans or blacks voted for Trump than any other Republican in the past. I think he won a higher margin.
Yeah.
And then when I was listening, I think the Democratic Party was kind of in chaos. They were panicking because they lost a lot of seats throughout the country, including, I think, 12 to 15 seats in the House, and I guess the Republicans are keeping the Senate. So they're panicking, and they were mad. Like, Democrats in purple districts who lost their seats were pissed, and they were saying, I want to hear nothing else about socialism and defunding the police. And it turns out that apparently a lot of suburban people and Hispanics, Latinos, and black people are not turned on by the idea of defunding the police and of socialism. Apparently that kind of terrifies a lot of people, but you're someone, if there's someone here who knows about socialism, I think it's you, Gaby. So give me why we should believe in socialism, which I'm guessing you're not going to say anything, or why we shouldn't.
Well, we shouldn't. Then again, though, to each its own. Like I said, I remember, it's funny that you said about the taking away the guns and stuff over there. Like, when Castro first, like, came up, as like the president, right, of Cuba, because he wasn't a dictator at the time. He never told anyone that he was running for, like, a socialist party or anything. He was like, I'm gonna give you guys, freedom, and I'm gonna make Cuba like the best island. And he fooled a lot of people. And 3 years later, he was like, I'm a socialist, and this will be like a communist, economy and everything. And so
wow,
I remember, like, from night to day, like, the whole militia was out into the streets. If you had, like, a little, like, I don't know, like a little market or un negocio or something, like, they came and they were like, this is gonna be ours. You're only gonna get a 5%. We're gonna own everything else. We own a 95%. You're only gonna do what you have to do with your 5%. They took away all the guns from everyone. No one had, like, a chance to, like, defend themselves or anything. That's why, like, a lot of, like, old people, like, in the farms and stuff, all they have is, like, a machete. Because, like, that's the only thing, like, that they were, like, allowed to have. Like, no
that's
guns, no nothing. Yeah, that's how they defend what's theirs, because that's the only thing that they had. And here, whenever, like, I started listening to, like, all these things, like, oh, defund the police, and, like, like, you're not gonna have any rights to, like, own guns or anything. I'm like, are you crazy? Like, what happens if it's 3 a.m. and something happens? If you're gonna call the police, what? You're gonna have to wait a week so then they can come and do an inspection to see if your case is valid?
We had a friend, actually, they were in Chicago. Was it Chicago?
I don't know who you're talking about.
Or Los Angeles. I'm not sure. Where is it that where they the police, you have to call and then they tell you to fill a report?
I have no idea. Maybe California, I'm guessing. I don't know.
Anyways, they had to call, dude, and they had to tell the police, like, okay, if they broke into your car, then you have to wait, make a report.
Oh, yeah. No, it was California.
California?
Yeah, it was California.
And I was like, that's crazy. That cannot happen here. It can't. Like, it's crazy. What if it's a call, an emergency call of, she's being abducted, and that's her only time that she's able to get a hold of someone.
Yeah.
I'm not going to call the cops anymore.
Yeah.
Well, I think defunding the police. I think there's a good rational conversation to be had about police brutality, right? Mm-hmm. And I think it's happened before. I'm not blind to it, and I'm not. I don't want to just ignore it or say to ignore it. But I think one of the things that kind of led to this problem, or to this, to where we're at today, where many people want to defund the police, go as far as doing that, it's because we are okay. A lot of us are okay with just ignoring the facts or ignoring the proof, right? And so what that looks like is, something happens. It's like, oh, it was a instance of police brutality, right? We don't wait for the investigation to be done. We don't wait for the body cam a lot of times, in a lot of cases. And then once the investigation is done, we find out that a lot of times it's not police brutality, or when it is, the police officers are being charged, right? Mm-hmm. They're actually being charged. In my opinion, I'm thinking, and I'm the same with the election. I mean, we've seen how long the election took, and I'm thinking, why don't we just chill, let everybody finish counting votes,
Yeah.
If there's allegations of fraud, then okay, investigate them. There's a difference between allegation and proof of fraud, right? Mm-hmm. And so if there's allegation, I think it's worth taking a look at it, and there's proof, then do what you have to do. But if there's not, then, oh, well, it is what it is. We have a system that we have to believe in. Yeah. Well, and I think that's how it is with the police system, with the law enforcement. We have to believe in the system, because otherwise, what else do we have? Mm-hmm. And when you defund the police, when you get rid of all this police because of one or two or three instances, then that only hurts the lower communities, the communities with less money, the middle class people. That's not going to hurt the rich people, the people in the government, like Nancy Pelosi and all those that are advocating for that. They have private security. They're not worried about that.
Yeah,
they got money in their bank.
They got money. Yeah,
got money under the couch.
And then when you're talking about defund the police and get rid of guns, that's where I draw the line. I'm like, okay, dude, I gotta defend myself and my family. But interesting that you mentioned that about Cuba. Like there's this lady that me and Juan, or Pastor, talked to one time. She owns a bakery, mm-hmm. And she's Cuban, and we talked about that, right? About how everything has started out there in Cuba, and she says she's sort of like you. I think she kind of grew up, or she was born into the system, but she remember telling her grandpa, why didn't you guys fight back? Like, why didn't anybody fight back? And then the grandpa was like, well, we couldn't, because the first thing they did was take away the guns. Mm-hmm. And then after that, we had nothing to defend ourselves with. Yeah. And so she's very pro-gun, like very pro-Second Amendment. And I think listening to experiences has kind of helped me shape up my opinion over a lot of things, including the Second Amendment. Mm-hmm. But you mentioned your dad being one of the persons that used to fight against the government. I'm guessing, not having guns or anything to defend himself with made it that much harder, right, to do anything. And I mean, you mentioned just him saying the wrong things got him in jail. Yeah. Like, can you share what some of those things might be that?
He was calling, there's a saying over there that the communists would say that would be, el que no es antes Yankee. So for them, like, saying that is like, oh, like, if you have like a little like shirt with like a USA flag or whatever, like you're a Yankee, like it's bad. And I remember like my dad, like he started like becoming more woke of what was happening there. Like food is controlled by a ration book and all these things. And when he started like being more aware of that as like a rebellious teenager, a lot of like people his age, like started to like go out into the streets, like demanding like their freedom, their rights, like at least food. Because if you're hungry, you can't think. Mm-hmm. So that's where like a lot of violence, like, started like upbringing like a lot of people together in some shape or form, because they started to realize, oh snap, like, you know, like this isn't right. And my dad like would call them pigs and like, you know, like what the heck are you guys doing? Like give us our stuff. And they threw him in like a detention like a couple of times because of that. But he was like, I've asked him a couple of times, I'm like, Dad, like, do you regret like saying those stuff that you did before? And he was like, honestly, if I hadn't said those things back then, I would have probably like never changed my mind. And I'm like, wow. Like it takes, I guess, breaking the rules over there to actually like comprehend what's going on. Because otherwise, like, if you talk to, like, a lot of, like, elderly people over there, like, there's still a bunch of, like, a good majority that still think that socialism is okay because, like, they were already, I guess, manipulated whenever that happens. So for them, it's, like, no way out.
Yeah.
You know?
So, Gaby, another thing, kind of talking, you know, in the same area. Again, right now, the idea of socialism has gotten a lot of strength here. And one of the things that we hear, you know, from the party that likes socialism, that's pushing for it, is that real democratic socialism hasn't been tried, right? The idea that I have of socialism is Cuba, Venezuela, and basically, you know, what Germany was, and you know, all those countries that didn't end up very well or very good. I'm not sure how much you've seen of the talking points from the, you know, about democratic socialism, but are you able to differentiate anything that they're saying from what you experienced in Cuba?
The thing is, like, whenever you hear the term like democratic socialism, what comes to like the mind of, at least I think my generation is the one that's like pushing the most for that, because we're young and there's a big lack of like foundation and like, I don't know. Whenever they think of that, it's like free. And one of the big terms that comes into play with that is education. I know like college here is like very expensive and everything, but whenever they hear like, oh, school is going to be free, right? And everything and lower prices and all these things, like that's not what it is. And you can't really have an opinion on that until you have lived through like one of these countries. Like, for example, school over there is free, right? Free. But at what cost?
Yeah.
You're born into this like mentality where like your future is not guaranteed. Like my mom, she wanted to study like history of arts, and she didn't have that opportunity. She ended up dropping out of school halfway through senior year because she was like, I mean, what am I going to do? Like over there, the education system is controlled. Like per year, only like certain slots open for different careers. So let's say this year, the only slots that were going to be available was medicine, laws, and education. And only like 70 spots for each. What happens to the rest of the people that didn't get a spot? I'm sorry.
There's just no plan for them at all.
There's no plan.
Can they come back the following year?
No.
Really?
First come, first serve. And the only people that have that chance are people that are like politically involved. Pro-communist, pro-socialist, and like being very like activated with like political view. So if that's not you, and if you're religious or have any like type of like religion or something, like no.
Don't even think about it. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that is one of the things that is very, very appealing to the younger generation, the whole free college. But I mean, you have to think about how much is it really free?
Exactly.
You know, like, because even when you look at the Scandinavian countries, right, which they might consider socialist countries, or you know, their president is saying that it's not a socialist country, that it's a democratic country with socialist programs. But even with that, where they have medicine for everybody, it's not really free. You're paying like 60% tax, or you know, 40%, or however much that is. Most of your paycheck is going to that. You know, so you're still paying for that. You know, I think the idea of socialism giving you things for free is very flawed. And I guess one of the things that they're trying to do here, they're saying, is that they would tax the top 1%. Yeah. Right. And I could be wrong, but I'm thinking if let's say I'm one of the top 1%, you know, I'm not, but let's say I were. Let's dream a little bit. Let's say I were. If I own businesses, right? If I own factories and things that are employing a lot of people, if I'm getting taxed a lot here, I'm taking my business somewhere else. Yeah. You know, why would I stay here if I'm giving more than 50% of my income to the government? And I think that's what a lot of people, including celebrities, like I think 50 Cent and what was it, Lil Wayne, kind of came out endorsing Trump because
Lil Pump.
because they were not with the idea of paying that much in taxes.
Yeah.
And it's I mean, I don't know, like to me, the idea, I haven't seen a socialist country that works. Mm-hmm. And the idea that it's getting so much grip scares me a lot, to be honest with you.
It's crazy because you think free, okay, that sounds great, but at what cost?
Hey.
If it's free for you, at what cost? So there's no hope? Like for the whole thing with education, free education, okay, but at what cost? If you're not first come, first serve, I'm sorry, there's nothing for you. Mm-hmm. There's nothing for you. And it's sad because you see like a lot of like 13-year-olds that already have that mentality, like, oh, I'm not going to go to school because like what's in it for me? Like it's impossible. So you see them like becoming hookers or strippers or whatever at that young age, at that young of an age. And if you think of like free food or like free medicine, at what cost? Like there's no like sanitary, and like nothing there is sanitary. The hospitals are a mess. Like a surgeon would work the whole day with the same pair of gloves. Oh, there's no sterilization or anything. So like free, but at what cost? Like you have to think about that.
Yeah.
So we can't have that like selfish mentality, like, oh, you know, what's in it for me? Like, no.
I know you shared your story once before, and it was very, very shocking, right? Some of the things, and you guys get a specific, I think one of the things that you mentioned is the food, and you kind of touched on that a little bit ago.
Yeah.
But kind of how the food is distributed out there, you know, because it might be appealing to say, oh, well, we get food from the government takes care of us, but how much food is the government giving you?
How much food? That's
and what type of food? And so I don't know if you want to touch a little bit on that.
It's funny that you said what type of food, because like even for meat, like it doesn't even look like meat. So a lot of people like just eat it because they don't have anything else. But when you look at the pictures, you're like, yo, what is that? Like that doesn't even look like beef, or like, I don't know. But it's funny that you mentioned that. For example, over there, a pound of tomato is $50.
Oh, wow.
5 eggs per person every 15 days if the market has it. Milk is taken away from kids at 7 years old. Like actual like milk that you can go and buy like at Tum Tum or anything. Yeah. It's removed at 7 years old. 5 pounds of rice per person, only once a month. 1 bread daily per person, but it's not loaf bread. It's not like real bread. It's like moldy hard bread. Like,
oh wow,
it's a type of bread. I'm not even joking. Like my mom like used it to like remove like our teeth, and that's what people over there use it as. Like nobody eats the bread over there. Sanitary pads, it's only a pack of 10 once a month. So imagine if like you and your daughter like are both in like
nowadays.
Yeah.
Oh, a pack of 10 per family?
Like only like a pack of like 10 pads, like sanitary pads, only like once a month.
Wow.
But what if you have like another girl living with you and like both of you guys like have the same, right? Like
yeah.
No. So a lot of women over there, they like cut up t-shirts, boil them, use them, boil them again, wash them, and you know. Seafood is illegal there, even though we're an island surrounded by water. There's no seafood. Plus, like, what are you gonna feed like those fish with? Like, they probably like run away to like other oceans.
The bread, the hard bread.
Yeah, like there's no sustain for anyone there. Red meat is illegal, and you get sent to prison for over 10 years if they catch you eating red meat. If you have a livestock of like horses, and let's say one of them is really ill, so you kill them and like you cook it and you eat it, you can go to jail for up to 25 to up to life.
For eating your own stock.
For eating your own stock.
Wow.
So what happens with the government? Like I said, there's always like at least 2 or like 3 people assigned in each like neighborhood to spy on you, right? And if they just sense like, oh, like, you know, either I saw him home walking with like a bunch of like bags and it looks like it was red meat, they will go to your house, they'll investigate if that's the case. Like, hey, what did you cook tonight? You know, like, oh, it smells really good. And then next thing you know, the cops are at your house. You're getting arrested.
Wow.
For feeding yourself and your family.
That's insane. So
Think about that.
Yeah, that's horrible. So this is, I guess, where the Cuban people are coming from. This is what they're running away from. Mm-hmm. And I guess when they hear socialism or when they hear all this, you know, programs, that's what they picture. That's the first thing that they see, which, you know, it's not surprised they voted against it, right?
Yeah.
And against that ideology in Florida. Mm-hmm. Again, I don't know if it is going to happen or it's not going to happen. I don't know if it's going to look the same if it does happen here in the States. I don't know what it's going to look like. But as of right now, I haven't had a good experience. I haven't had any good stories, or I haven't heard anything good that has come out of socialism. But again, I don't know. I don't even know what to think, honestly.
Well, I think a lot of people think that's the Christian way, the way Jesus walked, because from what I heard is like you give, and you're supposed to share because God did that, Jesus did that. So a lot of people, I think that's why they accept it. Mm-hmm. But I don't know. To me, it sounds more of like they're trying to brainwash you. Yeah. And try to take what's yours.
Well, I think there's an argument to be made for that as a Christian, you should be compassionate and you should be willing to give to the needy. And I agree with that. Mm-hmm. But I think that the Bible is very clear as well that people who work for their stuff are the people who are going to eat. As a matter of fact, if you look at the story of, what is that? Of the coins, the talents, mm-hmm. right? When you look at the story of the talents where a master gives talents to 3 people, right? Yeah. To 3 different ones. And of course, one of them gets more, the other one gets less, the other one gets even less. The one that got the least got scared and hid the talent, mm-hmm. right? He didn't invest it, he didn't do anything with it. The other 2 did, right? And they came back with more. And I think what you kind of get at with that, and by the way, the master reprimands or gets upset at the one who just hid the talent, who didn't do anything with it, mm-hmm. And you can kind of understand how, there's going to be disparities, and the Bible understands that not everybody's going to have the same amount of money, right? God understands that, I think, and that you work for what you want. You know what I mean? You work for what you want. And again, both things can be true at once, I think. You can mm-hmm. be compassionate, you can be giving, but you can also demand that people work for what they want. Yeah. That people work hard to get where they... And I mean, with me, my family, we came from Mexico. Mm-hmm. And I've seen my dad, get here and work hard for what he wants without speaking English. When he got here, he didn't even speak English, right? And now he has a manager position. He makes really good money. And so I find it hard to believe that, us Latinos or Hispanics don't have it good in this country, that we can't succeed in this country, Yeah,
no, you're right. And I think, because, I truly believe, like, there's some times, even in me and my family, we use the, what is it called? The programs. But we use them in...
Social programs?
The social programs, we use them. But then, es como el dicho que dice, te da la mano, and there's some people que te da la mano, te dan el pie, te agarran todo, and they don't want to get, they don't want to let go, they don't want to move up, because if they move up, they lose the social program.
They get comfortable where they are.
And to me, it's like, okay, move up, there's other people that want to get into the social program, but because you're there and you're stuck there and you don't want to move up, you get, everybody else is not being helped. Mm-hmm. So, that's where I
think it's a mentality thing too. Like
it's a set mentality.
Yeah, they have to change the way they think. And I think that's one of the things that's very different about you, Gaby, because you have a way different mentality. Like, I don't see you as a victim mentality. Even when all these people attacked you and called you names and all this stuff, you just kind of moved on. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? I don't know if you want to kind of give us a little bit of what it is that you do to kind of get over some of these things, or because I'm assuming getting attacked, if you get attacked a lot, it eventually gets to you. Mm-hmm. It gets tiring, it gets exhausting. What do you do to get over that? What's your take on all that?
My point of view from that is, like, you can't let it, like, get to you. And I know it's, like, really cliche to say, but, like, us as Christians, like, if we even, like, look at, like, the gospel, like, at the very end, at the very, like, last moment of, like, Jesus, like, being at the cross, like, he was being bullied and he was getting spit on and all these things, but, like, he did what he did because of love, right? Mm-hmm. And that's the whole point of the gospel. And for this, like, we're all going to think differently, right? But me as a Christian that obviously thinks differently than, like, a lot of people my age, I have to keep in mind that, like, whenever you get attacked or anything, you can't fight, like, fire with fire, right? People, sadly, are not going to understand because they've never gone through that. And I don't wish that upon anyone, right? But it's just a matter of fact to, like, comprehend that whatever you do has to be for you, and you have to understand the reasons why you're going to do what you mm-hmm. do. And for me, like, when I say, like, I'm pro-Trump, I'm pro-Jesus, I'm pro-guns, I'm pro-life, I say what I say because I know the value, and I've come to understand the value of what I have here because I didn't have it where I'm from. Mm-hmm. And so, like you said, it's not like a victim mentality, like, oh, I come from a place where there's nothing. No, like, forget that. you came from that. So you know the value of what you have now because you didn't have it. So appreciate what you have. Don't take it for granted. Don't be stuck in this like mentality of like, oh, I'm Hispanic, so like I have to work at like a factory or like, you know, like typical Hispanic jobs. Like, no, go to school, graduate, get that diploma. Don't be like your parents, you know, because they didn't have that opportunity. A lot of people, like, they don't go to school because, oh, well, my parents, you know, they didn't go to college, so I'm not going to go to college. No. Don't be stuck in that mentality. Like, do what you do and understand the reasons behind the reasons that you do. So
yeah, you have to be open-minded, and you have to be willing to accept change, and not just that, you have to realize that things are not always going to be the same. You know, and you have to find always, you got to be looking for a different avenue, to look for different things that will work out for you, that will get you to where you want to be. You know, because there's a lot of people that will just sit there and listen to what other people's idea of you is, and then they will run with that idea of you. Like, you're supposed to do this because you're Hispanic. You're supposed to do this because you're black. You're supposed to do this because you're Asian. Yeah, the stereotypes. There you go. And I think that's one of the worst things that we can do. Sit there and accept play our role, right? And without questioning things. You know, and part of why we started this whole thing was because of that. Because people don't want to talk. People don't like. I want to understand. I genuinely want to understand. I've gotten unfriended because I generally ask people, okay, wait, what do you mean by this? Or why is it that you think like this? And people don't bother to explain. They just, oh, you're an idiot. Boom, unfriend. Yeah. I was like, okay, there goes that. And so, I mean, I'm open to conversation. I'm open to hearing your ideas. Why not? I mean, I'm open to the possibility that I might change my mind. I think somebody who's not open to that idea is limiting themselves to growth. You know, is limiting themselves from being able to grow mentally, spiritually, and, you know, in society as well. But no, I like that. Any advice that you might have for anybody young, or anybody that is young and likes socialism? Anything that you would want them to know?
Please stay woke.
Stay woke.
Don't get your news.
Real quick, for those, just in case there's those who have no idea what woke means, can you explain what that means? The word woke. Yeah.
Stay alert. Do your research. Like, know the reasons behind why you believe a certain thing. Don't get your news from TikTok or Snapchat or Instagram or Twitter. Like, come on now. Like, do your research. And I feel like for the church, like, if you're whoever's listening to this, right? Like, for the church, you know, it's time to, like, I guess, like, put big boy pants on. And times are gonna get tougher. Like, I don't know if, like, a persecution might come, and I feel like there's gonna be a lot of Christians, right, that whenever that happens, they're gonna be like, Christian? What?
That's not me.
Never heard of that. And like I said, you know, stay woke. Like, actually, like, do your research and, like, prepare yourself, because you're gonna have to defend what you believe in, at least at some point in your lifetime. Yes. And if you're not ready for that, then you're gone with the wind, and that's it.
Get educated.
Yeah.
So, and then, okay, so we touched on a few different things, right, that we're seeing, that you've experienced in Cuba, that your family experienced in Cuba. How is the job market out there? How are people getting paid? Like, how does all that work out there under that government?
Paid unfairly.
Unfairly?
Yeah. Picture this, like, you work your behind off, you know? Like, you work hard to, like, sustain your family, right? And you're only gonna get paid with, like, an average of, like, $50 a week. But like,
is that general? Like, is that across the board for everybody?
I mean, it depends. Like, if you're lucky enough, that's probably what you're gonna get paid. Like, an average of, like, $50 to, like, $100.
If you're a doctor who studied?
Listen to this. People with degrees, like doctors, after their shift, you know what they do? They go and sell lollipops. Because there's no sustain. Like, we're talking about, like, for example, like, 1 pound of tomatoes is $50. Like, that's it. It's either like you spend your salary for, like, a week for, like, just, like, a pound of tomatoes, or go to sleep and drink some water.
That is crazy.
To fill up your stomach.
So I mean, just going off what you're saying, like, I'm even thinking, like, hey, do people actually have money to buy lollipops? I mean, that sounds horrible.
Yeah, like, it's bad. That's why, like I said, like, you're born into this, like, mentality of, like, what's even the point of going to school if I become the best of the best and like a doctor or whatever? I'm gonna have to sell lollipops after my shift.
Well, and that's one of the things why so far I haven't heard another argument that would make me change my mind yet. But that's one of the things that makes me like capitalism, that it incentivizes people to create things, right? If you're in a socialist country that's paying $50, $100, let's say even $1,000 a month or a week for each person, which $1,000 a week is not bad. But let's say even $1,000 a week, what if you're already getting paid that and everybody else is getting paid that? What is the incentive to create new things, to create new technology, to create new medicine, to create new advances in anything, really? You know, there's no incentive at all. You know, and so why should people spend their time studying, you know, to do this or to do this other thing when they're gonna get paid the same as everybody else? Yeah. And I think that's an argument that I haven't heard a good reason against. Because I mean, so far I can't think of anything really, to be honest with you, anything that would be a good reason to do that. But I think that's one of the reasons why the United States and Israel and countries like that are some of the countries that are coming up with the most innovations. Yeah. You know, especially in the medical world. You know. You know, there's a thing where people say, like, I've seen a video going around that says the United States is not the best, you know, because we're such place in math, we're 10th place in reading, whatever, right? Who cares?
We suck at this, we suck at that.
But the point is, that's not the point at all. The point is that we can be last at all those things, but the fact that people are still coming, like the most intelligent people from other countries are still coming to the United States to bring their ideas because of the freedom we have. You know, we're the best country because of the freedoms that we have. And again, saying all that list of things that we're bad at only proves that we're the best country, because the best people from other countries are coming here to carry on those ideas that they're having, those innovations, those things that they want to do. And I mean, I don't know. I haven't seen an argument against it, but I feel like socialism is going to kill all of that. It would kill all of that.
It's funny that you say that, though, because like the best thing that I can say that socialism taught every Cuban is that it made us innovative, because since there's no food, there's no money, you have to get creative with what you got.
Oh, that's another way to look at it.
So for us, like it was a family of 4, right? And let's say like chicken came, like a quarter leg and like a thigh was like what, every 2 weeks, I think. Like 1 or like 2 pieces per like household, right? Like my mom can make like a whole dinner for like 8 people out of like just those 2 pieces. Wow. Like you have to get creative. That's why like we do a lot of like omelets. Like Cubans, like we love omelets, and like we make them out of like potatoes and onions. Like I think you have tried them a lot, but like potatoes and onions or like plantains and all these things, because you have to get creative with what you got. Like you have un plátano y un huevo. What can I make out of that? Like an omelet, like, you know? Arroz con leche, arroz con mango. What is it? What is arroz con mango? Arroz con mango, yeah.
So that's interesting that you mentioned about innovations, because then I kind of didn't want to go into this because it's like a whole different topic, but it's interesting because it in a way it's something that sort of gives you a purpose. You know, I guess you could say it kind of gives you something to do. And I think the reason why we're seeing a lot of the things that we're seeing today in this country, a lot of the rioting, a lot of the protests and things like that, is not necessarily like, I'm all for protesting, right? I'm all for freedom of expression and all this stuff. But I think part of the reason why is that we have so much freedom in this country. We have so much already in this country, right? That a lot of times we look to find meaning in other things. Like as human beings, we need to find meaning. We need to find how do you say it? Purpose, right? Yeah. And if we don't have it because everything now is given to us, we're gonna find it somewhere else, right? And I think, to be honest, like when you look at the movements, the civil rights movements back in, you know, years back compared to now, I mean, you see that before women were fighting for the right to vote, for the right to own houses, you know, for actual rights. You see Black people were fighting for the right to own, for their freedom. I mean, more tangible things. And now it's like we're trying to find something. Okay, what am I fighting for? Oh, I'm going to fight against speech. Like if you say something offensive, I'm going to fight for people not to get offended. And it's like that's completely opposite of how the Constitution was founded, because the freedom of expression came from someone saying, came from the saying, I may not agree with everything you say, but I am willing to die for you to have the right to say it. Something like that. I might be butchering it.
Yeah.
And now it's like, it's the complete opposite of that. No, you can't say that because it offends me, it offends other people. And that's not a sustainable ideology, I think, but
there's a saying that I heard with like that what you said. It said, if we all think the same, then no one is thinking.
Yes.
And it's true. Like, how can you allow
Dr. Seuss?
Yeah. Yeah. How can you allow new ideas to like come in, whether it's like, I don't know, let's make water bottles not transparent, like let's make them matte or something. If we don't allow like new ideas to come in and we're all just like, oh, you hurt me, oh no, but now I hurt, like,
yeah,
we're all just gonna be stuck in like this same line where like there's no growth.
Yeah.
So
yep, that's true. That is very true. And just real quick, you mentioned that being religious is the enemy of the state in Cuba, right? Like, is there any role for churches out there? Are there any churches, and what are their roles? What do they do? Like, what's
the churches function until like I guess the government thinks that they get out of hand, because there's that system where like they have like the spies in like the neighborhood and stuff. Sometimes like they will send like spies inside the churches, like, and they would like try to blend in with everyone else, right? And they would stay there and observe, like to see what the pastors were preaching. And if they didn't like it, they would like, come down and we're going to close down the church.
What?
And so, yeah, if you're Christian, like my dad, he was kicked out of so many jobs. He was unemployed a lot just because he had a belief, right? And that's the socialist ideology that, people are atheists there. And like they practice a lot of like santeria and like brujeria and all these things because like since there's no hope for like an economic system, like do you really think people will have like the chance to like believe in anything else even if it's God? So even that's taken away from you. So yeah.
Wow, that's crazy.
That's crazy. Crazy. I just can't believe it. Like to me it's kind of I guess in Mexico where my family is from, they come from a little rancho. And I remember as growing up as a kid, we saw a lot of santeria, a lot of, worshiping the santos and stuff. And I never understood why they wouldn't just go to church. And then one time I asked my grandma, and I was like, why don't y'all just go to church and, pray to God? And then she's like, well, it's because the church is not open. Since it's a rancho, the church wasn't always open and they didn't really have a priest.
Oh, wow.
So they will like go to the other things that would be like the santeria, the santos, and like everything else because the church was closed.
Yeah.
So.
Wow. Well, it makes me wonder though, what you were talking about the spies too. Like it just makes me wonder, like, are there ever any cases in which a family will feel betrayed? In other words, let's say you've been my friend for so long and I don't even know that you're a spy. And all of a sudden you kind of tell on me. Like, does that ever happen?
It happens a lot, especially if like you're about to leave the country. Like it happened to us. The lady was nice and she lived in front of us, but like she was very chismosa. So like a lot of people started gossiping like, oh, I think like, she's from the comité and whatever. And like, yeah, she was. And
burner.
Like literally it comes to a point where like, how like Hispanics, like they dry their clothes in una tendedera and stuff. Like if one of like the shirts like fall and stuff, like she would come to your house and be like, hey, is this yours? I don't know, man. It looks suspicious to me. Are you sure like you bought that here? Like things like they would question you for everything. And I remember when we were moving, like we had to be very like precautious because we would start selling everything like at night or getting rid of it at night. And right before like you leave the country, like they would come and they do a count of everything that you have in your house. How many spoons, how many chairs, how many forks, how many knives, and then they come again the day before you leave. And if there's anything missing, they're going to question you about it. And if they just suspect that you sold it for money, you can't leave the country. They will get on that plane and they will call you by name and you will have to come off.
What?
Yeah. Like we almost stayed over there because my dad brought a box with like all their drawings in there and they broke the box. They tear the box open right in the middle of like the airport. And they were like, are you sure you're not like hiding anything? My dad had like a bunch of books about like anti-communism and all these things, and like if they found that, like that's it, that would have been game over for us.
Oh wow,
that would have been game over.
Yeah, that sounds horrible. That sounds like a system I wouldn't want to live in.
No. Yeah.
No, I think this kind of brings us to a pretty good stopping point. So Gaby, thanks so much for coming out here, for sharing that. It's pretty insane stuff, honestly. But we appreciate you coming. And for all of those who are listening, for everybody who was able to log in and listen to this conversation, we appreciate you guys. Thank you guys for joining us again. And we'll see you guys in the next one.